Have you ever really thought about the true cost of becoming a doctor in India? I mean, beyond the study, the sleepless nights, all that intense pressure, there's often this massive kind of unspoken hurdle.
I know.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
huge financial wall that so many aspiring doctors just crash into sometimes before they even see their first patient. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a really landmark Supreme Court ruling, one that aims to fundamentally reshape access to medical degrees. It could honestly change thousands of lives across the country.
That's absolutely right. And this isn't, it's not just about the price tag. It digs much deeper. It's about justice, really, accessibility, and ultimately the future of healthcare in India itself. For this deep dive, we've looked at, well, comprehensive analyses, detailed excerpts from legal documents, news reports. Our sources give us both the legal specifics, but also the real-world human side of things, so we can get right to the heart of what this ruling actually means for everyone involved.
Oh, wait. So our mission for you today, let's cut through all the legal jargon, the sometimes overwhelming stats, the policy speak. By the end of this, you'll have a really clear grasp of the what, the why, and maybe most importantly, the what now of this decision. You won't just be informed, you'll hopefully walk away with a deeper feel for just how complex medical education in India really is. Let's get into it. Let's start at the beginning, the root of the problem, because it's huge. These often just astronomical fees that private medical colleges charge, they're self-financing, right? So they don't get government funding. And that means they've historically relied, sometimes almost entirely, on tuition fees. Now, relying on tuition, that's not inherently wrong, but, well, in loads of cases, it seems to have crossed a line. It feels like exploitation sometimes. Demanding fees that are just, well, out of reach for most families. It creates this kind of elite gateway based on money, not just merit. And this whole situation, this is really what set the stage for the Supreme Court to step in so decisively.
Yeah, and what's really crucial to understand here is this isn't the first time the Supreme Court has had to get involved. Not by a long shot. There's a history, a somewhat frustrating one, actually. If you go back to 2003, the Supreme Court mandated these admission and fee regulatory committees, often headed by retired high court judges. Their specific job was to monitor fees and, critically, stop capitation fees, just so we're clear. Capitation fees are those extra charges, often kind of under the table, that colleges demand on top of the official tuition. So this latest ruling, it's not totally out of the blue. It's more like a really forceful reinforcement of those old principles. The court basically saying, look, we meant it then, and we really mean it now.
Okay, you called it a major bombshell, but given that history you just laid out where past rules maybe struggled with enforcement, what makes this ruling from June 2025 different? What teeth does it actually have?
That's a great question. And yeah, this ruling is different. It's much more explicit, much sharper teeth, you could say. First off, private medical colleges are now flat out banned from collecting any extra fees beyond the prescribed limits, period. No hidden costs, no sneaky add-ons. Second, and this is really important, they must adhere to subsidized fee structures, especially for BPL students below poverty line. That's huge for access. But here's the real kicker, the game changer. Students who were overcharged before, who paid those extra, unauthorized fees, they are now legally entitled to refunds. Technically, this came from a high court order in Kerala, but the Supreme Court confirmed it applies nationwide. That refund part, that changes everything. It turns past wrongs into a lever for real change now.
Wow, okay. Refunds. So forget the legalese for a second. What does this practically mean for, say, an aspiring doctor, their family? What does that new reality look like? It sounds like a lifeline.
Oh, it absolutely is a lifeline, a massive one for many. I mean, just imagine being a brilliant student, pouring years into study, getting into medical college, only to get a letter demanding sums that are just impossible for your family. This ruling means that barrier, or a big chunk of it anyway, could finally come down. It's about opening doors based on merit, not just how much money your parents have. For families, it could mean not having to mortgage their homes, sell land, get into crippling debt cycles just for their child's education. And that prospect of refunds, it's huge. It's acknowledging a wrong and giving people a way to get back what was unfairly taken.
But unfortunately, as our sources really highlight, Tamil Nadu kind of stands out as this, well, almost infamous example of why this ruling was so badly needed. They've had their own fee committee since 2007, right? Justice R. Pontiapan heads it now. But despite that, it's just been ground zero for overcharging. It really shows having rules on paper isn't enough, is it?
You're absolutely right. The situation there, the numbers are, frankly, shocking. Let me just lay some of them out. For an MBBS degree, right, the basic medical degree, government quota seat, prescribed fee, around 4.5 lakh rupees a year. But reports show colleges were demanding up to 15 lakh.
15. That's more than 3 times.
Exactly. More than triple. And it gets worse. If you were looking at an MBBS management quota seat prescribed fee, 14 lakh colleges were reportedly asking for up to 45 lakh.
45. That's just, wow. Again, 3 times the limit?
Precisely. It's almost like these colleges are running a charity, but wait, no, they're charging 3 times the allowed fee. How generous.
Generous isn't quite the word. It's hard to even wrap your head around. They're not just fudging the numbers slightly, they're operating in a totally different financial reality.
And it doesn't stop there. Postgraduate courses, even worse. A PG government quota seat should be 3.5 lakh. Colleges were charging 15.5 lakh. PG management quota, supposed to be 15.5 lakh. But then they'd pile on extra hidden fees. Uniforms, mess, hostel, bus charges, and the real kicker, often demanded in cash. No receipts. Makes it very hard to track, very hard to prove later. This is where you hear these heart-wrenching stories. Like Dr. Kavin B asked for 15 lakh for a PG spot when the official quota was just 3.5 lakh. Or Dr. Praveen facing demands of 17 lakh tuition plus hostel for orthopedics. And get this, instead of the mandated stipend of around 37,000 rupees, he was getting a measly 10,000.
So they're charging him a fortune and barely paying him for the work he's doing as a resident.
Exactly. It's unbelievable. And then to really trap students, many colleges force them to sign these bonds. If you leave the course midway, you owe the full remaining tuition plus a penalty, maybe 15 lakh rupees.
So you're financially trapped. It's not just expensive, it's designed to keep you there, paying.
It's a system that breeds despair, honestly.
These stories are tough to hear, and the scale in Tamil Nadu is just staggering. But stepping back a bit, is Tamil Nadu unique in this? Or are other states doing a better job? What stands out when you look nearby?
It's a really interesting comparison, actually. Some neighboring states paint a very different picture. Take Karnataka, for example. The fee for NMD and anesthesia is set at just under 14 lakh rupees, around 13.88 lakh. But the key thing is, colleges there seem to be largely following the rules and paying the proper stipends, too. We heard from students like Dr. Suya Prakash. He specifically said he paid the exact fee, got his full stipend, no funny business.
So transparency seems key there.
Definitely. And look at Andhra Pradesh. There's an institute in Kuppam, PES Institute, charges 12.5 lakh for MBBS, and it's actually attracting a lot of students from Tamil Nadu. Why? Because it's seen as transparent, sticking to the rules. One report mentioned 30 students from Tamil Nadu in just one batch there.
Wow, that migration speaks volumes, doesn't it? It really underscores the issue. Tamil Nadu might have the committee, the regulations on paper, but the actual enforcement, it seems to be seriously lacking. Students are literally voting with their feet, going elsewhere for a fairer deal. It shows a policy is only as good as its bite, really.
Absolutely. And look, to be fair, the Tamil Nadu government has tried to address this. They haven't been completely silent. We've seen warnings. Health Minister Mashimi Subramanian back in April 2025 warned against charging for internships, which should be free. Go back to 2022, the Medical Secretary Senthil Kumar warned colleges about overcharging, and they did bring in that 7.5% reservation for government school students in 2020, which was a positive step for access.
But here's the thing, right? These seem to have mostly been warnings, stern warnings maybe, but where was the real follow-through? The penalties? It feels a bit like playing whack-a-mole. You address one fee, another one pops up.
That's often how it seems, yeah.
And that's precisely why this Supreme Court ruling feels different. It could finally give the government and the students real leverage, mandating not just compliance going forward, but refunds for past overcharging. That changes the game.
It does. Though we absolutely have to expect pushback. These private colleges, their whole financial structure is often built on these high fees. So resistance is almost guaranteed. This won't be an easy fix overnight.
So let's pull back again. Think about the bigger picture implications of this ruling. What does this really mean beyond individual students getting refunds?
Oh, potentially it's huge. This isn't just about correcting past wrongs. It could genuinely increase access for students from economically weaker backgrounds. Think about the impact that could have on diversifying the medical profession itself, making it more representative of the population it serves. It also nudges India closer to, global norms where education, especially something as vital as medicine, is seen more as a public good, not just a product to sell to the highest bidder. Reducing that financial exploitation element is critical.
It's kind of amazing when you think about it. Students were so desperate, they were willing to pay 2-3 times the proper fee just to get in. And the Supreme Court has basically stepped in and said, hold on, wait a minute. That is not how this is supposed to work.
Exactly. A necessary intervention. But as you said, the pushback potential is real. We might see legal challenges, lobbying efforts to find other ways to increase fees within the rules.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to be a high-stakes situation going forward. And it's interesting, quickly, if you look internationally, countries like the UK, Canada, they often have much tighter regulations on medical fees, plus significant government subsidies. It just highlights India's kind of unique reliance on the private sector to meet the massive demand for doctors, mainly because public medical college capacity is limited.
Yep.
So this ruling is a really vital step in trying to bring some fairness and, frankly, sanity into that very complex system. It challenges that idea of medicine just being a commodity.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. The core takeaway from our deep dive today seems clear. The Supreme Court's ruling is a potentially massive step forward. It's about making medical education accessible, affordable, a real beacon of hope for so many aspiring doctors and their families who've been hitting that financial wall. But as we've really dug into the road to actually seeing this fully implemented across the country, that's going to be a real test, a test of will, of enforcement, and whether these institutions will truly play ball.
And that leaves us with the big questions, doesn't it? The ones we'll be watching closely. Will the colleges genuinely comply, or will they find clever new loopholes? Will students actually get the refunds they're now entitled to, or will it just drag on in more legal fights? Honestly, given the history, given the financial incentives, the evidence points towards a challenging path. Full compliance might not be immediate or easy, but, and this is key, it is such a powerful, significant start. It really shifts the balance of power towards the students, and that in itself is monumental.
Absolutely. So here's something to think about as you go about your day. How might this ruling reshape things? Not just the dreams of individual students, but the entire health infrastructure of India. What could healthcare look like if becoming a doctor truly hinges more on merit and dedication, and less on whether your family can afford those, frankly, often outrageous fees? Something profound to mull over until our next deep dive.